We continue now at the top of Daf Kuf Yud Zayin Amud Beis in Meseches Bava Metzia. This is Bava Metzia Daf 117b. The Gemara says, Amar Rabbi Yochanan says, B'shlosha mekomos shana lanu Rabbi Yehuda. There are 3 times that Rabbi Yehuda taught us, Asur la'adam sheyene mimamon chaveiro. A person is not allowed to derive benefit from the money of his friend. And the Gemara says, Chada hadatanan. One of them is in our Mishnah, meaning to say, our Mishnah says that if we have a case of zenen and v'zelu chasr, he gets benefit from the person's property, even though the other person is not losing. So we say in such a situation, he does have to pay rent. That's the first time Rabbi Yochanan says where we find that Rabbi Yehuda holds this. Idach mahi, what's the other place where Rabbi Yehuda says this? The Tanan, we learned in the Mishnah, this is in Babba Kama. Hanosein etzemer letzava letzvo lo edom v'tzavo shachar. Let's say a person gives wool to a dyer, he wants him to dye it red, but instead he dyes it black. Or the reverse, shachar v'tzavo edom, he wants him to dye it black, but instead he dyes it red. Rabbi Meir says, no sin lo demeit smaro, he gives him the value of the wool. Rabbi Yehuda says, Im hashevach yoser al ha'hotzah, if the amount of the improvement is more than what was spent, no sin lo hayetzia, he pays him whatever he spent, meaning he pays the dyer whatever the dyer spent. V'im ha'hotzah yeser al hashevach, but if what was spent is more than the improvement, so then no sin lo hashevach, he gives him the improvement, he always gives him the lesser amount. Rashi explains, Sheyene mimamon chaveiro. Again, Rabbi Yehuda holds you're not allowed to get benefit from the money of one's friend, shelo b'matana, ad shetehe midaito v'nochelo, meaning to say, it can't be a situation if it's not a gift unless it was willingly given as a gift. Otherwise, you're not allowed to get benefit. Again, like Rabbi Yehuda said in our Mishnah, that he has to pay the rent. No sin lo demeit samaro. And then we have a machlokas tanoim. What exactly happens when you give the wool over to the person who dyes it the wrong color? So Rabbi Meir says that the person who dyed it should just pay for the wool. Tzemer lovon kemoshe masar lo dekani b'shina v'neschayim mos. Essentially, the person who dyed it, he is kanya b'shina. He acquires this wool now because he physically changed it, and he has to pay money. The value it was when he got it as white wool. He has to pay for the white wool. Essentially, the dyer buys the wool off the person who gave it to him since he dyed it the wrong color. That's Rabbi Meir's opinion. But Rabbi Yehuda says, Im kein techayvo nimsa zenene shezehi viu lo min hashuk. It's going to come out, if that's what you're going to say, he's really getting a benefit over here because he's bringing him wool from the marketplace, and basically he's doing him this favor. Ella, rather what you do instead is machzer lo esatzemer kemos shehu. You have to return the wool as is, tzavua, as it is dyed. V'yado ala tachton, and the person who did the dyeing, he has the lower hand. He's always going to get the lesser amount. Im hashevach sheishbiach hatzemer yeser ala yitzia. If the improvement of the wool is more than what was spent, shehotzi tzeva zebes hamamonim ve'etzim uschar tircho kashar sachar yom, because again there's a cost involved in dyeing. So then no sin lo asiyitzia. You give what was spent. He gives the lesser. V'lo masharoi bekablonis to have it tzvei. You're not going to give what you would normally give in a situation where someone does a job. That would be more. And then if it's the reverse, again, you always give the lesser amount. But the point over here is that we see from Rabbi Yehuda that you're not allowed to get benefit from the mammon of one's friend, again, unless the person is explicitly doing it intentionally to give a gift. That's exactly what Rabbi Yehuda is saying over here. Rabbi Yehuda is saying that Rabbi Meir is incorrect. The person can't simply just pay for the wool and then get the wool. And the Gemara continues, V'idach mahi. Now what's the other case, the third case where Rabbi Yehuda says you can't get benefit from the mammon of one's friend? The Tanan, as we learned in a Mishnah, this is a Mishnah in Babba Basra, Misha para mixas chovo. Let's say a person pays part of the debt that he owes, and now he's afraid that if the malva keeps the shtar, the malva will collect the entire debt again. V'hishlish shtaro. So what he does is he puts the shtar, the document, in the hands of a trusted third party. V'yamar lo, and he says to him, Einani nosin lach mikan v'adzman ploni. If I don't pay it until a certain date, if I don't pay by a certain date, tein lo shtaro. Then you, meaning he tells the third party, he says, go ahead and give the malva back the shtar. He'll be able to collect the whole thing. And so the Mishnah says, Higi azman v'lo nasan, if the time comes and he actually doesn't pay what he owes, Rabbi Yossi Omer Yitain. Rabbi Yossi says, yes, the person who's the third party, he should give the shtar back to the malva. The malva will be able to collect the entire debt again. Rabbi Yehuda says, no, lo yitain, he shouldn't give it over, and that's the same idea, because then the person essentially will get benefit from the mammon of his friend. He'll be able to collect the debt a second time, even though he's already collected part of the debt. Rashi says, V'hishlish ashtaro, again, he gives the shtar to a third party. Hifkido biyad neman, he gives it to a trusted person. L'fi shadoag halove sheyachzor v'yitvenu kol hachov. The borrower is afraid that the malve is going to collect the entire debt when he's already paid some of it. V'yamar lo love l'shlish, and the borrower says to the third party, Amein ani nosin lo es amos mikanad yom ploni. If I don't give the remaining by a certain date, so tein lo shtaro v'yachzor v'yitvakol, give him a shtar, he'll collect everything. Rabbi Yossi says that's fine, and Rabbi Yehuda says that is not okay. And the Gemara continues, Amai, why do you explain Rabbi Yehuda in this fashion? Dilma adkan lo kamer Rabbi Yehuda hacha, ela mishum deika shachru risa. Maybe Rabbi Yehuda only says it over here, meaning in the case where you live in the person's bias, so you have to pay rent, said Rabbi Yehuda. It's because there's a blackening of the walls. As Rashi says, V'dilma lo hi zenene v'zelo chaser. Maybe it's not that this is a case of zenene v'zelo chaser. Lo ka aser Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda would not say aser in a situation of zenene v'zelo chaser. Elo zenene v'ze chaseru. Rather, it's a case where he's getting benefit by living in the house, but also the person who's the owner of the house is actually losing out. Umasnisin zenene v'zechaser. Our Mishnah is a case of zenene v'zechaser. Why? Diamrle balabayas, because the balabayas can say to the person living there, "Kamishacheres lekoslo, you're blackening my walls. Shatabone chodashim v'yafim, you're building a nice new house. V'chol adamim olai, and you're making me pay for everything. V'atam ashchirin ba'ashin lefnei yitziyaschel, but before you leave, you're going to have smoke in there. You're going to cause it to blacken." And so therefore maybe that's the pshat in our Mishnah. The reason why Rabbi Yehuda says that he shouldn't just build the house and live there is not because it's going to be a case of zenene v'zelo chaser and he has to pay rent, but maybe Rabbi Yehuda was saying it's going to be a case of zenene v'zechaser and that's why he has to pay rent. And the Gemara continues, Inami, or you could say in the case of the dyer, l'tzva lo edom v'tzava shachar, in the case where he dies at where he's supposed to die at red and he dies at black, the real reason why he ends up essentially paying the lower amount for the wool that was dyed the wrong color is mishum de kamishana, because he did something different than he was supposed to do. V'atanan, and we learned in the Mishnah, kol hamishana yadu ala tachton, if somebody deviates, then he gets the lower hand, he's going to get paid the lesser amount. Rashi explains, the havale mishana, because he deviated uknosa kanisle, maybe this is just a fine. Avol zenene v'zelo chaser could go in the but again, in a situation where one person benefited and the other person didn't lose, like earlier, meaning like the earlier case of hadar b'chatzer chaveru, somebody lives, let's say, in the courtyard of his friend, b'chatzer de lo kaim al-agra, talking about a courtyard that wasn't meant to be rented out anyhow, v'hadar ze afilu avid l'megar, and even if this person is looking to rent, so he's benefiting, it's zenene v'zelo chaser, davale zenene v'zeno chaser, eino tzarech lahalos lo schar. Maybe in that case of a typical zenene v'zelo chaser, maybe Rabbi Yehuda says you don't have to pay rent again, it's only in this case over here where there's a blackening of the walls, or in the case where we apply the rule of kol hamishana yado ala tachtona. And the Gemara continues similarly, umisha para mixas chovo nami, in the case where a person paid part of the debt as well, and so then Rabbi Yehuda said that the third party shouldn't give the contract back to the lender, because then he's going to collect the entire debt when he shouldn't be doing so. But maybe in that case also have a asmachta, that's really not asmachta, because the borrower, he's intending on paying everything off by the date. He's not intending on having the third party actually give the contract back to the lender and collect again. He's thinking that he will be able to pay it off on time, therefore it's an asmachta. V'shamina leila Rabbi Yehuda, damar lo koni, and Rabbi Yehuda holds that an asmachta is not kona. Maybe that's the real reason of Rabbi Yehuda in that Mishnah as well. And Rashi explains, v'shaminan leihacha ashminan hachi. It doesn't mean that we know this about Rabbi Yehuda in some other context. It means that we would be learning from this case that Rabbi Yehuda holds asmachta is not kona. And the Gemara continues, Amar Rav Acha Barada Mishmei de Ula. Rav Acha Barada says in the name of Ula, Tachton habo l'shanos begavil shomen lo. Let's say the person on the bottom, he wants to rebuild the house, he's rebuilding his structure, and he wants to use gavil, which means he wants to use uncut stones. That is essentially considered to be better than cut stones. So then we listen to him, we allow it, those are larger stones. However, begazis, let's say he wants to use cut stones instead of uncut stones, ein shomen lo, then we do not listen to him. Similarly, bekfisin shomen lo. Let's say he wants to use kfisin, which are half bricks, that we do listen to him, that's beneficial. But if he wants to use whole bricks instead of half bricks, that's considered to be inferior, and we do not listen to him. And similarly, the Gemara says, L'sakech ba'arozim shomen lo, if he wants to roof it with cedar wood, so that's considered to be better, we listen to him. But b'shekamin, but if he wants to use sycamore wood, ein shomen lo, then we don't listen to him. L'maid b'chalonos, if he wants to have fewer windows, shomen lo, then we listen to him. L'harbos b'chalonos, but if he wants to have more windows, ein shomen lo, we don't listen to him. L'hagbia, if he wants to make it higher up, ein shomen lo, we don't listen to him. But l'maid, but if he wants to make it lower, shomen lo, then we do listen to him. And the Gemara continues, when it comes to the person on the upper floor, it's exactly the reverse. Elyon shabol l'shanos begazis, if the person on the upper floor, he wants to change and instead use cut stones, so then shomen lo, we listen to him. Begvil, but if it's uncut stones, ein shomen lo, we don't listen to him. Bekfis and half bricks, ein shomen lo, we don't listen to him. Belevenim, if it's whole bricks, shomen lo, we do listen to him. Ba'arazim cedar, ein shomen lo, we don't listen to him. B'shikma shomen lo, we do listen to him if he wants to use sycamore. L'rabos b'chalonos shomen lo, if he wants to have more windows, we listen to him. L'maid b'chalonos ein shomen lo, if he wants to have less windows, we don't listen to him. L'hagbia, he wants to make it higher, ein shomen lo, we don't listen to him. L'maid shomen lo, but if he wants to make it lower, then we do listen to him. And Rashi explains, Tachton Shabal Lashanas, if the person on the bottom, he wants to change Bibinyan Choma Sha'olam Min HaYesod HaTzikra. Again, he's building this wall from the foundation to the roof. So then if he wants to change Bigavil Shomanlo, if he wants to use the uncut stones, we listen to him. If originally it was cut stones, Ubalisha Kishanafla now fell down, he wants to change things, Velivnos Ba'avne Gavil, and he wants to use and build it with uncut stones, Shomanlo, we listen to him, because now he's making the building stronger. Shechomas Gavil Ruchava Mishal Gazis Tefach, because the walls of Gavil, of the uncut stones, are wider than the Gazis by a Tefach, so it's a more solid foundation. And similarly, Kfisim, let's say he wants to use the half bricks, Arche Chatzoi Levenim, Verachvan Tefach Umechsa, Venosin Ariach Mikan, Viariach Mikan, Vetefach Avonim Dakos, Vesid Beineim, Vaveoma Ove Hachoma, Dalet Tvachim. What essentially happens over here is the thickness of the wall is going to be 4 Tvachim, because each of the half bricks, it's 1.5 Tefach, and you have one Ariach on one side, another Ariach on the other side. That's going to be a total of 3 Tvachim already, plus you have a Tefach of small stones plus the plaster. The full thickness is going to be 4 Tvachim. But Bilevenim, but if you're going to use Levenim, which are whole bricks, Shalemos, that's whole bricks, Vein Ovav Shal Kosal Al Kamidas Rochvan, so it just goes, the thickness of the wall is just going to be the width of the bricks, Vein Gimel Tvachim, that's just 3 Tvachim, it's going to end up being a Tefach less. Klal Hadavar, now Rashi explains the general rule is as follows: Hatachton shemarchiv ove habinyan. If the person on the bottom, he makes what he's building thicker, umachziko, and stronger, shoman lo, we listen to him. Imimayit chizuko, but if he wants to make it less strong, ain't shoman lo, we don't listen to him. She'elyon toano lemachar yipol, because the person on top can claim that tomorrow it's all going to fall down. Now ve'elyon, now the person on top, he's building his upper floor. It's exactly the opposite. Shabola hachbet es hamasa tachton ma'akev olav. If he wants to make it heavier, that's more problematic, because it's going to cause it to collapse, so the person on the bottom can stop him. That's why everything is reversed for the person on the top. So if he makes it lighter, then we're going to listen to him again. That's by the person who lives on the top floor. And Rashi continues, when it comes to cedar, bekoros shel tikra tachton, if that's going to be used for the lower beams, kamayri, that's what we're talking about. Varazim iskaimin min hashakamin umasan kavid. The arazim, they last longer, the cedar lasts longer than sycamore, and it's heavier. Balashanos tachton mishkamim la arazim shomelo. So therefore, if he wants to use cedar, we'll listen to him. Shemahaneu lelyon, he's helping the person on top. Shemiskayim v'chazak mokam midrach ragla, because he's making it last longer and stronger. Me'arazim l'shakamim, but if he goes from cedar to sycamore, ain't shomelo, we don't listen to him. Neishei nochin l'shavar, it's easier for that to break. Laharbos bechalonos, let's say the person on the bottom wants more windows. Memayit chozak habinyan, so now essentially there's more holes in the wall, it's not as strong. V'elyon ma'akev olav, the person on the top can stop him. Lahagbiyah, if he wants to make it higher, meaning chalal habayis, if he wants to make the house, essentially the first floor, to be taller, ain't shomelo, we don't listen to him. Now the person on top has to climb higher to get to his floor. And also the lower it is, the stronger it is. And elyon shabolashanos, and then we have the reverse. If the person on the top wants to change, time of the kulu shomen lo mimnei shememayit kovet hamasa. Again, the reason of all the cases where we listen to him, it's because he's making it less heavy. But if it's heavier, the person on the bottom can prevent him. Now the person on the bottom doesn't care if the wall is weak on top. That doesn't bother him. He just doesn't want it to crush the entire building. And the Gemara continues, Ein lo lazeh v'lo lazeh mai. Let's say the person on the bottom and the person on the top neither has enough money to rebuild this building. So what is the halacha? And we'll read the parentheses, even though some take it out. Tanya, we learned in a brisa, Ein lo lazeh v'lo lazeh. If neither has money, Ein lo labal aliyah bekarka klum. So if they sell the land, the person who owned the upper floor gets none of the money from that land. The owner of the land is considered to be the person on the lower floor. And the Gemara continues, Tanya, we learned in a brisa, not like what we just read. Rabbi Nosson says, Tachton notel shnei chalokim v'elyon shlish. When they sell the land, the person on the bottom gets 2/3 of whatever money they get for the land, and the person on the top, he gets 1/3. V'acherim omrim, others say, Tachton notel shlosha chalokim. The person on the bottom gets 3/4, 3/4. V'elyon notel ravia, and the person on the top gets 1/4. Amar Rabba says, Nakat Rabbi Nosson b'yadach. You should choose what Rabbi Nosson says as the halacha, meaning to say, the person on the bottom gets 2/3 and the person on the top gets 1/3. And why should we follow Rabbi Nosson? The Dayanahu, because he was a judge. V'nachis l'umka dedina, he descended to the depths of the law. Kasavar, because Rabbi Nosson holds kama mafsid aliyah bebayis tilsa. How much does the upper floor cause the person on the lower floor to lose? He loses 1/3. Hilkach islay tilsa. That's why he gets 1/3. And Rashi explains, "My islay labalhu aliyah bekarka olo." Again, does the person who owns the upper floor, does he get any of the land or not? The dayanahu, we say that Rabbi Nosson is a judge. Av bezdin haya, he was an av bezdin. Kinamin and behorios, like we say in Horios. Kama mafsid shlish, how much of a loss does he cause? He causes a loss of 1/3. Yemei kiyumahim maheres lipol machmas masu aliyah, meaning because of the upper floor, it causes it to collapse faster, and therefore it's considered to be a loss of 1/3, and that's why he gets 1/3. And the Gemara continues with the Mishnah, V'chein beis habad, likewise by an olive press, shehu bonei besala, which is built into a rock, essentially built into a cave within a rock, v'gino achas al gabav, and then there's a garden on top of it, v'nifchas, and it deteriorates, meaning the beis habad deteriorates, hare bal hagina yored v'zorei lamata, so the owner of the garden can come down and plant below, because the idea is since the beis habad has now collapsed, the gina is no longer able to be on top of it, ad sheyasa lebeis bado, keep it until the person who owned the olive press is able to make arches to support his olive press. And Rashi explains, Beis Habad, the olive press, Bayis Latz or Zesim, again, it's a house to press olives, Vigina Achas Al Gabo, and then there's a garden on top. Shechakak Odom Besela Tachte, a person essentially carved into a rock, into a cave, Kagon Kippah. It was like an arch to Beis Habad, V'haya Ginaso Lamala, and then the garden was on top, Ubeis Bado Milmata, and the olive press was on the bottom. Ucheshemesim, when he died, when the person who owned both of these died, Notzlu Bonav, so his children took it over. Zeb Beis Habad, this one took the olive press, V'zegina, the other one took the garden. V'nivchas Gago Shel Beis Habad, Shehu Mokum Zriyaso Shel Elyon, and then the roof of the olive press, it deteriorated, and that was the place where the person on top was planting his garden. And the Mishnah continues, Hakosel v'ha'ilan shenaflu l'Rosh Hashanah, if a wall or a tree falls into Rosh Hashanah, v'hizik, when they cause damage, pater milashalim, the person is pater from paying. And Rashi explains, pater milashalim, he's exempt from paying. Demai havalei lemevad onasu, what else could he do? This was a situation of an accident, so he is not responsible. However, the Mishnah continues, Nasnu lo zman lokutz eso ilan v'lister es hakosel. If they gave him time to cut down the tree or time to destroy the wall, as Rashi says, Nasnu lo zman sharauhu bezin, the court saw, shahaya nota, that it was leaning, it was going to collapse, v'yamru lo sasor, and they told him he has to destroy it. And then again, v'naflu, it fell down. So b'soch hazman, if it's within the time period, meaning he didn't hit the deadline yet, so pater, so then he's pater. But li'achar hazman, but if the time already passed, if the deadline already passed, he was supposed to have cut down the tree, destroy the wall, so chayiv, then he's going to be chayiv. And the Mishnah continues, Misha yakos lo samach leginas chaveru, if somebody's wall is near the garden of his friend, v'nafel, and it falls, v'yamar lo, and he says to him, pane avonecha, clear your stones, v'yamar lo, and he says to him, and Rashi explains, v'nafel esoch ginaso shel chaveru, again, it falls into the garden of his friend, and we will continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Kuf Yud Ches Amud Aleph.